Hello, and welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where we attract ways and find new ways to achieve those two goals. And we invite friends on to help us. And right now, before we get started, is an excellent time for you to click the subscribe button and the share button and send this off to someone who you know will absolutely 100% benefit from Cassie Parks, who Cassie is the fairy godmother of, she's going to grant your wishes with just a tip of her wand, her magic wand of what do I want to say? Not, I don't want to say intelligence. She's going to tap her magic wand of manifestation abilities on your forehead or on your nose, and you are going to be able to manifest more than just parking spots. You're going to be able to manifest the life of your dreams. Cassie is a best-selling author, and she has helped many, many thousands of people to manifest an amazing life and a really amazing amount of money. So Cassie, thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I love talking about money and financial independence and living the life of your dreams. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I saw on your website that you retired yourself at 32. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that was fun. And that has been, let's see, I just turned 40. So that was 8 years ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I keep saying next year is my year, next year.
Yeah, I love it. And 1 year will be next year, that's how we live into it.
Exactly. So Cassie, at 32, that's pretty impressive. So were you always sort of a master manifestor? Did you sort of start off early in life, like being able to figure out exactly what you wanted and to get it and attract it to yourself?
No. So I will say I had the experience that most people, I think, have when they manifest, is it's like they're really successful that first time, or you learn about the law of attraction, you're really successful. So that was me when I was 13. The first thing I ever manifested that I remember was money. So there was a fundraiser for like choir and band. And if you sold, I think it was 5 things the first night, you got entered into a drawing, and there were 5 $20 bills that they were drawing for. So I went and I sold that stuff, and that was easy. And before I went to bed, I closed my eyes and I visualized hearing, sitting in my chair in my spot in choir, looking up, seeing them pull out the paper and hearing my name and walking down and getting my $20. And the next day I was the 3rd name called for that. And so that was my first time manifesting money. And I would say then it was a lot of years, at least 15, it was probably 15 years before I understood enough. And I stopped pushing, because for my early 20s, I pushed what I thought was the law of attraction. I believed in it, but I was pushing, I wasn't manifesting.
So what's the difference? Explain to us, because I'm sure you're not the only person to ever make that mistake.
Yeah, definitely not. I have a lot of clients that do that. So when you're pushing, it's okay, I'm going to set this intention, and then I'm going to go do 100 things to try and make it happen. And pushing looks like 2 things. It looks like howing. So, okay, I want to manifest an extra $10,000. And then you go, if you have a business, you're like, okay, that's 5 new clients. And so I'm going to put out 20 new posts a day, and I'm going to do this. And you have this very long list of things that are going to make it happen. Right. And the other way, so that's howing. The other way that people push is by trying to do all the law of attraction things. I call it a manifesting to-do list. They have it, it's a mile long. And they're either not living their life because they're trying to manifest 24/7, or they're just feeling guilty because they have this long list of things they think they should be doing every day to get what they want. And then they're just feeling guilty at the end of the day because they didn't do it.
So tell me how you figured that out. How did you get to where you are today? And you can start at the crib if you want and work your way up, or whatever the highlights that you think would be most interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went through a phase, I thought I always wanted to be a counselor. And then I realized when I was getting my master's, I wanted to be a coach. So I started studying different things, and I wanted my own business. And I was pushing. I was doing everything. I worked on that business 24/7. I can't tell you what I was doing, but I was always working. Looking back, I'm like, you weren't, what were you doing? But I was always doing something. I had a full-time job. And I remember getting to this place. I was sitting in my car. I don't know where I was, but I had this very strong visual of being in my car and being like, what is it that you really want? And I was like, to be financially independent, to not have to go to work. And so I really shifted my focus from trying to build my business to get out of work to, okay, I want to be financially independent. That was my intention when I was 19. At this point, I was probably 27 or 26, 25. And I said, that's it. I don't want to push to have this life while my life sucks because I'm trying to work all the time. And in that moment, was like, okay, that's it. And I kind of just stopped everything for a little bit and really focused on self-love and enjoying my life more. And through inspiration was led pretty quickly to the path to be able to leave my job.
That's amazing. Did you know that it was the path? Do you know what I mean by that?
Kind of. Say a little more for listeners, because I think I understand. But
so when sometimes you get an idea or an inspiration, or you get sort of attracted to a certain way, a certain path. And okay, so I'll tell you, I often argue with my inner being. Like my inner being will say, do this thing. I'll be like, oh, that doesn't make sense. That's not logical, blah, blah. And then later on, I think, oh, shoot, my inner being's so smart. I really should have done that thing,
Yeah.
And that's what I'm kind of saying. Like, did you immediately say, oh, that's a great idea, I'm going there? Or were you sort of like, is there any trepidation or any sort of?
For me in that moment, there wasn't trepidation. I feel like I might have ignored it in the past, but in the moment, because it happened a little bit, not the full idea at once. So I actually had a couple investment properties because I turned the first house that I lived into. All my roommates moved out and I was like, this is too big. There was a downturn in the market. So I actually bought a house down the street that was smaller, a lot less, and rented that one. And so there was a couple things that came into my life, like really, oh, that's passive income. Doesn't matter if it's $100 a month, like that is passive income, and really starting to see that. And then when I kind of let everything go, there was one weekend and I had this thought was like, I wonder what the least expensive house in Denver is. And this was obviously probably 10 years ago. And so I just looked it up and I thought, and I was like, I want to go see that. And so I called the realtor and we went to see it. Well, while we were seeing it, someone else had put in an offer. So I didn't get that place, but it sparked that. I ran the numbers and I'm like, oh, I have the money in my account now. And I had been working on my money mindset this whole time and shifting how I invested money and spent money and all of that. And I'm like, I could buy this now. And that's another 300 a month. And I'm like, okay, like that adds, now there's 400, right? And so that really got started. And I didn't get that place, but I kept looking. And the difference for me when I wasn't pushing was I was being patient. I would look when it felt good. I wasn't like every day, like, oh my God, what's for sale? I have to find another condo that I can do this with. It was like, okay, let me look today. Or let me, and I don't even think I had the realtor set the thing up, where they can tell you, but I just would look when it felt good. And it was a slower process. So, and then I opened up, and then, another step to it was when I bought one place after that. I was like, ooh, we ran into somebody who had just bought like a 2-bedroom or something. And they told us what they paid, or they were looking or something. And I'm like, oh, I could like get a 2-bedroom and that would pay the mortgage on this 1-bedroom. And so it was just following these little thoughts without the pressure or trying to force it to happen.
Do you think that there's something to that, this idea of not pushing?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Interesting. It's funny because, you said, even if it's $100, the very first podcast interview that I had was with, oh God, I'm having a mental block. That's so ridiculous. He hosts, he I should have done jumping jacks before I started today because I'm like having these mind farts. But anyway, he has a podcast called The Cash Flow Guys. And that's exactly what he said. He said, figure out a way to make $100 passive and then just keep on doing it, and just do it as many times as you need to do to make sure that Tyler Chef, to make sure that, to get the amount of money you want. I'm like, yep, that's it. And you
Yes.
just said it. Oh, I figured out how to make $100 passive, and then I just did that a million times or
Yeah.
whatever, you know?
Yeah. And it gets, when you don't push, it gets bigger. But yeah, what most people do is they're like, oh, I have to figure out how to make $1 million right now. So they're chasing all of these ideas instead of taking the step and the step and the step.
Yeah, exactly. Interesting. Cool. So that was your path to being able to retire and say, okay, that's it. I don't need to work anymore.
Yeah. I ended up, so when I bought that one property and learned about that 2-bedroom, it sold before I could, get it. But I was like, oh, okay, that's what I want. I want a 1-bedroom that, and actually it was reverse. I want a 1-bedroom that pays for my 2-bedroom. And I'm like, this is possible. And so it was open. And it worked out a different way than I thought it would. My sister was actually looking for a new house at the same time with a yard. And so we were both kind of looking, and I'm like, hey, there's a lot of houses in Denver that are broken up. They were bigger houses that are broken up into more like condos. And I said, what if we pooled our money? We looked for that. And she was like, we're open, whether we found one together or whatever. We found a property where she could have the bottom, she could have the yard. I had a 2-bedroom condo upstairs, like totally my own space. And I got the carriage house in back. That was a 1-bedroom. And that 1-bedroom paid the entire mortgage, all the bills. And so that was the next piece that I needed. Yeah. And then I was able to leave my corporate job.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
amazing. And now, I mean, how did you know that you were like ready? Because this is actually something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, is like, how do you know that you're ready to leave your corporate job?
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't saying, oh no, what if there's a downturn in the market? What if I lose a tenant? Blah, blah, blah. You just knew, okay. How did that knowing come about?
It was both a knowing, and for me, I'm really big on leveraging the law of attraction in our mindset. I'm really big on having the money mindset that isn't desperate. Right. And so part of that is understanding the numbers and your money. And so for me, I understood, okay, how much do I need in my bank account to make me feel safe?
Right.
That I could cover something like, okay, if I have to cover 2 months while I'm changing out tenants or something like that.
Right.
It was really part of that. And then just feeling ready, and knowing. And for me, when I left, I made the choice, I'm going to live on a lot less than I made. And I was okay with that, because for me, it was like, I'd rather have freedom. I'll figure out how to make more money, but I want the freedom now to have the space to learn how to make more money.
Right. Yeah. That's key, actually. Don't you think that this idea of like accumulating a lot of junk and stuff and car payments and whatever, like, oh, okay, I have this amazing. I actually was just talking about this to somebody today. Like I want this incredible sports car. I want to drive a Maserati. Okay, well, you can buy the Maserati today and be in debt, or you can wait 5 years and then have the Maserati paid for, right? Like not that I want a Maserati, but you know what I mean? Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So now bring us up to today, Kate. Luckily, I have an editor. She's going to take out all these stupid things when I can't even speak. So, Cassie, bring us up to today and tell us, like, what do you, once you left your corporate job and you said, oh, wow, now I can do anything I want. How did that turn into your today life?
Yeah. So I knew that I wanted to coach, but I had, I didn't know what my niche would be. I knew it would be something. About 6 months before I left my job, I'd had this inspiration of a course. Cause like I mentioned earlier, I'd been working on my money mindset, because that I had to change that in order to become the person who could both manifest the money, the passive income, and who could live that life, who could step into this freedom. Right. And so I had to shift that along the way. And so I'd gotten really good at that. And I was inspired. I was talking to a friend. She was actually in an MLM, and she said, I don't know whether to follow up with people. People say they don't have the $350 or whatever. And I don't know if that's an excuse, so I don't talk to them, or that's for real. And I said, oh, like we got off the phone, and I'm like, I could help anyone manifest $350. And just like inspiration, I wrote down this course, and I'm like, this is what I would tell them to do. Right. And I told her, then you can give them if they do the course, it was the money. If they don't do it, it was just that. Right. And so that was really what I had thought that would be. But when I quit my job, even though I had money in the bank and I had money to live off of, and it was the same amount I'd been living off of because I was only living off half my salary anyway and saving and investing the rest.
Yeah.
And, but I could feel a shift in like a little bit of worry. And I'm like, I got to do that course. Like for me, I know enough to know I have to get my mindset in, on track and be very powerful if I'm going to stay out of my job. Right. Yeah. And so I wrote the course and I did it and then I released it. It was the best thing I'd ever done. I mentioned pushing in my business before. The most I'd ever had anyone in a course was 2 people. I had over 170 people the first time I launched this course.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, right?
Awesome.
Yeah. It was, yeah. And so after that, that's what people wanted to learn more about manifesting money. And because it was a money manifesting course. Yeah. And so that has really, that was where I started. And then I evolved the process and I do a lot of future self work. So the money manifesting is step 1, future work is second. And that is, mostly what I do. I live my life and I coach people and have not traveled as much the last 2 years, but prior to that, I would go live at the beach for a month, or I would go, stay with friends, do whatever felt good.
Yeah. Amazing. So I was just thinking about your online course. Now, when you first said, okay, I'm going to do this course, did you just sort of say, bring me some people like to the universe and they kind of appeared, or did you do something special to like attract them into the course?
I did something special. So I had come in contact with scripting. And what I knew when I sat down and I said, okay, I'm going to launch this course. Like I said to myself, I know how to be a coach who doesn't attract clients. I need to learn.
I can teach a class on that.
Right? I know what that feels like. I know what that looks like. I know that experience. If I'm going to attract clients, I have to practice and get that experience of being the coach who has clients. And so when I wrote that course, I did a technique called scripting, which my definition is speaking or writing as if it's already happened. And I have a specific formula to do that. But back then, I would just sit down, and before I started writing a course, I would write, so many people are manifesting money. I love this. It's so much fun. Gina manifested $5,000 and she's so happy and everything is good. And, Juliet is growing. And I would script before I wrote. And if I got to a place in the middle where I'm like, I don't know what to say next, I would just stop and I would script, because I knew I had to know what it felt like to have, first of all, clients, and then also, right, that are successful and they're showing up and they're doing the work. I had to have that experience. So for the 2, almost 3 months that I wrote that course, I scripted that every day. And that's a lot of what I teach now. So when I teach, we start with doing some money things, and then we do some scripting like that about money. Once we've built up to this person that you can be, we'll do some scripting. And then I have an in-depth future self that we also do the scripting.
Cool. So tell me, right now, today in your business, how do people find you? Like, do you feel like, how do people find you? How do people know, how do they know they need you, and how do they find you?
So they find me. It's so interesting because I ask, they just find. And so it'll be something like, oh, I've never looked up Law of Attraction podcast before. I don't even listen to podcasts, but I looked it up and I found your podcast. Or they'll find a book online, or, just yesterday, somebody came into the course and she's like, I read your book 2 years ago and I was just inspired to pick it back up. And then she joined. And so, they find me randomly. I wouldn't say not randomly, but randomly. Yeah. And what was the second question?
Well, it's just, how do they know they need you?
Oh, how do they know they need me? They know that they need me because they want to know how to make the law of attraction work. They've been trying to manifest money and they don't know how, or they resonate with, I've figured out that there's about 5 money stories that people default to. And so they'll see themselves in those stories and they'll go, okay, yeah, I'm a money chaser. I need to write a different story.
Interesting. So how do you work with people when they first come to you?
Mhm.
Do they usually have a goal, or how do you sort of begin the process?
So I begin the bigger process with manifesting $10,000.
Mhm.
That's our intention, because it's big enough that most people can't figure out how it, right? They could figure out, go get, but it's generally big enough that you're like, oh, I don't know how that's going to happen. And that's important for your brain in manifesting, because if you can't figure out the how, it's a lot harder, right? You can't, not harder,
Right.
it's easier because you're not going to fall into that trap as easy of like, how is this going to happen? Right.
Yeah.
And also it's big enough that it's that stretch, but it's not so big that your brain is overloaded and like, this is never going to happen, and sort of fights against you for it. And I
Yeah.
learned that by teaching the course. In the beginning, it was called Money, Money, Money. And we just attract any amount of money. And I would let people say, okay, what amount do you want? And what I noticed is those that are like, oh, $10 million, they're gone after 3 days.
Of course.
But there was, this sweet spot of just this little bit, not little bit, 10,000 is a lot, but in the grand scheme of what people want, taking that first step
Yeah.
was very powerful. And so that's
Yeah,
where we start,
absolutely.
is that intention. And then there's daily exercises that lead you to open up and receive that and notice that that's coming, which is fun.
It's difficult though. I mean, do you find that people are that they're getting in their own way, sort of saying like, oh, how can this happen? There's no way I can do this. Or is that how part of what you need to help people work through?
Yeah. So sometimes that happens. There's a couple things. So my program is very small steps at a time. So we kind of trick your brain into not knowing that we're changing you. So we have that less resistance from that, right? Your brain trying to keep you the same. But also now, which was available in the very beginning, but now there's coaching with my program. So when somebody hits that, hey, I don't know, I'm feeling frustrated, or I don't know how that's going to happen, how do I believe, they can come to a coaching call and they can get that answer and get coached through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I can see how, and I know I've had this same experience myself where I've thought, for example, I am part of this mastermind group.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time I joined because a friend asked me to, and I said, yeah, fine, I'll join your little mastermind, And it was all about, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich, and you read the book and you're supposed to set this goal and say it every day. And the whole time I'm saying, like, what are this, this thing gonna happen, like the back of my mind, I'm thinking this is, and because the goal was, like you say, it was too big, my brain was saying, get a grip, and so
Mm-hmm.
just the opposite happens, right? You just,
Yeah.
so, so tell me, oops, I think I just hit the microphone. Tell me about your podcast. You mentioned it before, and that's how some people find you. How did you get started with that?
Yeah. So I have two. I love talking, and I had a podcast even way back when I was trying to force my business. So I have two. I have one where I interview. I was inspired a couple years ago to start having my clients tell their stories, because that's both powerful for them, because it locks in your brain like, oh, I've grown from here to here, right? But also as listeners, when we hear other people have done it and we hear what got in their way, and we know that they've gotten better, like, we start to see ourselves in them and believe like, oh, she's a mom of 4 kids and she did that, I could probably do it, or I might be able to do it.
Yeah.
Oh, she was, single and had a high powered job and left and did this. I might be able to do that if I'm single and I have a high powered corporate job.
Yeah.
And so listening to those stories is powerful, both for those telling it and that. So that is one of mine, where we just go through and right now they air about a year at a time. So it'll be a year of growth from, whatever they've gone through and all the things that are happening and all of that. And then I have a podcast called Manifest It Now with a close friend of mine. And we just talk about living the law of attraction. We pick a topic and we talk about how it applies, and we laugh a lot and have a lot of fun. And, that was inspired. I wanted to have a show like that. And I actually had one with a friend, and it kind of petered out because she wasn't as committed. And so I told my co-host, hey, like, this is my idea. Do you want to do it? She's like, I don't know if I could talk for that long. Well, 300 episodes later, we're able to find enough to talk about. And just for listeners, I feel like someone needs to hear this. We were on a network before, and the network person, I think there were 10 or 12 shows. And at one time we were in the top 3 under her show that had been around the longest and the second longest show. And then it was us.
Yeah.
And she told me one time, I was speaking on a cruise that she put on, and she's like, I didn't think your show was going to go. I didn't think people would listen to you two talk, or only a half an hour. And I was like, I knew it would work. And so, just for anyone who's ever told them like that won't work, if you know it works, if you feel called, it's going to work.
Right. Yeah. If you build it.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like you're getting the message right in your ear, and don't let the naysayers have their way. Right. I mean, there's the people who can't see it. They don't hear it. I mean, they're not getting the whisper. They're not getting the idea. So they're letting their doubtingness come in and getting hung up on the how. Or the howling. I like
absolutely.
that. Howling. Don't get hung up on the howling. So tell me about your pay after offer, your pay after manifesting offer. That is unique, I think.
It is. I've never met anyone else. I've heard people see it and they're like, oh, I want to do that. But back when I first started, when I was writing that course and scripting, like we talked about, I said, all right, what's the investment for this? And I'm like, I just heard that whisper, let it be a percentage, 10%. So it doesn't matter if somebody manifests $100, if that's where they're at, they pay 10. If I had people that first round manifest $25,000 and pay me $2,500. And for me, that's more fun, because every time I get money coming in, I'm like, they have more money and I have more money. Yeah. And so the course went through different iterations. And about a year ago, I opened it back up to pay after you manifest and added the coaching with it. And so anyone can, you apply, you get accepted, and you agree that you're going to pay 10% of what you manifest that's over and above. So not your paycheck. If you make $4,000 a month, that's $4,000, but you get an extra $1,000, you pay $100. You win the lottery for $1 million, you're paying $100,000, and you say yes. Yeah. To that. I just had a client win $17,000, and she just sent in 10% of that. Yeah.
Probably very gladly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's a chance that everybody can start where they are, and that is important for me, because if you're willing to do the work, I know the program works. It's been proven over and over again that it works. And I trust the universe is always providing for me, so I can serve everybody, whether they manifest $1,000 or they manifest 100,000 or $1 million.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm really, and like you say, the feeling that you get, right? Yeah. Like you say, every time I get a check, I'm like, wow, I helped somebody manifest $25,000. That's awesome, right? It's not even so much about the money, the check you got. That's a representation of how successful the program is, how successful you've been. That's fun.
Yeah, that's my favorite part. It's like getting the update and getting the money. I'm like, yes, they have this much more money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So have you had mentors of your own along the way?
So I did a business mentorship, and I think it was 15 and 16. She was also my book publisher. So she was a mentor in learning how to write a book. I wrote 7 books under her. Think about how many there was. 6 nonfiction and 1 fiction.
Cool.
And so learning how to do that skill and learning how to build a business, parts of how to build a business. And then I took that mentorship and had to apply it to what I was teaching about my future self and learn how to take that sort of, this is how you do it, advice, and figure out how that works for my future self and the business and life that I want to lead.
Yeah. Wow. Interesting. So tell me about, you just were saying you were writing fiction books, and I saw that on your website. On your email. Tell me about that. That's fun. I've always wanted to write a mystery.
Oh yeah, that would be fun. Yeah, I was just inspired. I was actually writing, what was I writing? Double Your Business in Italy. And a friend of mine was writing a fiction book. She had been a fiction writer. She had had these characters for years that she wanted to write. So we were writing books with our mentor.
Yeah.
And that's what she was writing. And as we were there and I'm in the pool, like the infinity pool, we're looking the vineyard and the Mediterranean. I'm just having this character come to me and these different lessons that I learned that I could put into a character story. And so that's what I did. That was the first one. And then there was another story. I'm like, okay, whose story is this? And it was a character that was in that. And so then that became kind of the prequel, because it was that character in the first book that I read, but is technically second in time. She kind of had a friend that she met that guided her to that next level. And it was like, how did that friend get to that next level? And so there's more in that series, and there's lots of series, but yeah, it was something I wanted to see. Could I do this? Could I bring this story to life? And yeah.
Fun. So it's not like a fiction. It's more of a, not a parable, but along those lines, right? It's something that when you read the book, it's going to teach you something.
Yeah.
It's not just a complete like diversion.
Yeah. I mean, it's very fun and you will get lost in it, but yeah, the titles are also the lessons,
Yeah.
and I have clients that they're, Own It. One client pops into mind. Own It is one of the books. And for her, that is it. And she goes back to that and she remembers that character and how she learned to own what she wanted and to ask for what she wanted and to get what she wanted. And yeah.
Awesome. So before we leave this sort of, category or whatever you want to call it, before we leave this sort of section of the podcast, tell people how they can buy your books, because I think that a lot of us learn better that way, right? To learn with a fun story with some interesting characters that can distract your mind and teach you something by accident. That Absolutely. Is a lot of fun. How can folks get a hold of those books?
They're on Amazon. So Own It and oh man, how did I forget the
we're having these mental blocks today.
I know, right? Own It and where is it? I usually have a copy right here. That is so weird. I have never forgotten to Own It, and Own It is the first one. I will come up with 1 second. You're going to edit this, right?
Yes.
I cannot believe I forgot the name of my own book.
Isn't that funny?
Oh,
I've done it.
Choose Me.
Choose Me. I like it.
Yeah. So Own It. You can just go on Amazon and Own It or Choose Me. And so if you want to read them in technical chronological order, Own It comes first and then Choose.
But if you want to read it in the order in which it was written, and you can do
then Choose Me comes first and Own It is second.
Cool. That's fun. Okay. So now let's say that I'm listening.
Mm-hmm.
I am listening. Let's say that I'm one of the listeners. And I'm like, well, okay, that's cool. I definitely want to take the course and I definitely want to do all that stuff. But like, what can I do like today that can start me in the right direction? Are there some sort of things that you can recommend that people just like?
Yes. So one of my favorite, and this is easy, you can literally start today, is to change the word spend to invest. Because when we spend money, our mind is like, it's gone, right? Yeah. So number one, but when we invest money, we expect a return on it. And so, yeah.
So I'm going to invest
Um,
in like a Gucci bag, right?
Right. And if you invest, so then when you look at it like, okay, this is an investment, if it is a Gucci bag, you pause and your brain is like, okay, am I going to get a return? And for some people, the return, the way they feel when they walk out the house, out of the house with a Gucci bag is it, that return on investment pays every single day. Right. And for some people, it's nothing and there is no return. And when we start to learn that, and our mind is like, okay, I'm buying this thing, right? I'm going into a random store and I just spent $50. Did I just get the return of the high from spending money, or am I getting a return on investment? Like, do I love what I bought?
Yeah.
Is it food? Right? Is it
Right.
like, am I investing in my health, or, feeding myself, or, when you're making your mortgage payment, a lot of people will look at that as the debt. They'll be frustrated. Oh, this is so big. I have to pay it every month. But if you look at that, like, that's the investment in housing your family or you,
Right.
right? It's the investment that you use every single day. So even just starting to see the things that we have to pay for, quote unquote, as investments, we see that return versus just money going away. We see what
Yeah.
we're getting from it. And then other things, if we start to, okay, am I spending money or am I investing money? Oh, I'm just spending money. I don't need to do that. That was what I did. I would go to the clearance rack and I would get this high from filling this huge bag that when I would move at times, that all those clothes had all the tags on it, right? Because I wasn't investing in what made me happy or what I
Right.
was going to get a return on. I was just spending money for that quick high in that moment.
Wow, that's a great way to look at things. And as you say, like sometimes you'll say, yes, this is an investment because it's going to change my attitude. It's going to make me feel better. It's going to make me more confident. It's going to help me to impress the people at the golf club, whatever kind of foolishness. But you can also look at it and say, no, this is just spending random money. It's a waste. And then it's not as much fun, right? You're
Yeah,
without working at it, you're kind of talking yourself out of it.
absolutely. And that's what I did. When I mentioned earlier, like, I was living off of half my salary, I loved my life. And it didn't mean, I would go to $100 dinners with my friends, sometimes have amazing experiences. But for me, one of the things when I started to look at an invest versus spend is I'm like, yeah, I don't want to spend $10 eating out every night. I want to go with my friends and I want to have this amazing meal at an amazing place with an amazing cocktail and have an experience.
Right.
And that just happened naturally when I started thinking about it. I didn't go, oh, I should cut out all of this stuff. Right. And
Yeah.
that's very much what I teach is if we're investing in our happiness, we naturally spend less because we're doing it, very consciously.
When you want those higher quality experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's so good. And it's interesting because here in the summertime, I'm in Boston. In the summertime, this year things came back, but there's so many fun outdoor things to do in the summertime that are all
Yeah.
free. But there's such the experiences, you know, they're worth $1,000,000, because it's so fun and you're outside and it's summertime and you just feel so good. And there are other things where you just like it costs something and you just feel like even though it didn't cost that much, it was not fulfilling, right? It was too
Right.
much. I just paid this $5 was too much for this experience. I'd rather save a bunch of $5 and have this really fun, amazing experience. And yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. And if people just start that, I mean, I have a couple more, but people start that today, that is really what, makes that shift.
yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love that. Yep, that's an instant mindset shift.
Yeah.
And you know what you do? I don't know if you were going to talk about this already. I'm sorry if I took this out from under you, but
Mm.
you can think of it the same way with your time, right?
Yes.
Am I spending this time or am I investing this time?
Hmm.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I always say when you change your money story, everything changes. And because when you start to be conscious of, oh, of this investment, it transfers to time, it transfers to your relationships, it transfers to just anything you're doing, right? Whether you're spending your time, your money, or your energy.
Yeah.
If those are all places where you invest in your happiness, life changes pretty quickly.
Boy, that is so true. Awesome. Thank you. That was like a light bulb. I love that.
Yay. Me too.
Okay. Okay. So do you have another tip for us?
Yeah. So I like to, a lot of times when it comes to money and people, like, creating financial independence, you want to be aware of where your money goes, because I think people who are financially independent, they got there because they were aware, right? But I think budgeting is always seen, it's not a 4-letter word, but a lot of people see it as a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
So I like to change that to budget for attraction. What do I want to spend money on? And this goes back to investing, right? But I think so often when people go to budget, there's this list of things, and there's this very annoying thing that happens in my budget app. They're like, oh, you spend more or less than the average American on this. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care what everybody else does. This is for me. But I think that's where we get in trouble with budgeting. Oh, I should spend here, but I shouldn't spend there. And so we're not, again, it's keeping us from investing in our happiness and what we want. So I like to look at a budget. Is my budget for attraction? And where I start with budgeting is, okay, what do I want to spend money on? And instead of what am I spending money on? Okay, where do I want to be spending money? What makes me happy?
Yeah.
Right? And how much do I want to spend there? And then I work backwards to see if I'm in alignment with that, instead of, oh, you're supposed to spend X percentage on your house and X percentage on this and only this percentage on food, right? What do I want? What makes me happy? What makes my life amazing? And then it's easier to make those choices. This is another level of investing versus spending, but it's easier to make that choice. Like, oh yeah, I don't want that because I really want to spend here. I had a client that I interviewed recently, and she was like, her interviews are actually coming out right now. And she goes, I learned I want more in my savings account instead of to spend that money. Like it's become an easy choice because what I want is more there. I want to see that in a bigger number more than I want a shopping bag of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's funny because while you were saying that, I was thinking about some of the things that are on my list. I mean, there's no reason why I'm not already, for example, taking guitar lessons. There's no reason why I'm not already doing that. It's on my list of things that I'm going to do. But
Yes.
I was just thinking about like that type of a choice. Like, let's say that I, have a latte every day and I go out to lunch, and that ends up being $15 or $20 a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the end of the week and you're like, I could be spending that $100 a week to take guitar lessons, and that would serve me so much better. And giving up that lunch and the latte would be so easy. Like, I'm just going to eat a peanut butter sandwich for lunch because I'm taking guitar lessons, or, like just to think, like you say, how do I really want, what's really important to me? And then the other stuff is just going to kind of just naturally flake away because it's not really, you're not getting any joy from it.
Yes.
Yeah. Great tip. Great tip. Awesome.
Cool. I have one more if you want it, if we have
Yes,
time.
absolutely.
Yeah. Count all of the extra money coming to your life. So many people will say, I want more money. I want to manifest more money. I'm intending more money. And then they don't count it when it shows up, because it generally starts small. It starts going to, I've always loved this. I have a client and she went in, her favorite coffee was on sale for like $5 off a bag. She was going to buy it anyway, but there's $5 because her timing was right? Because she's lining up and she's manifesting. So write that down. If somebody buys you lunch, write down that $10 or $15. If they buy you coffee, like that's $5. Count the extra money that's coming into your life now. Count the penny, the nickel, the dime you find on the ground now, and celebrate that, because your brain will see more money coming in. You're training yourself to be aware. And to take that a step further, if you were planning on buying lunch and your friend says, oh no, I'm going to buy you lunch, and it was $10, right? Take that out of your account because you were planning on spending that, and put it in a jar on your desk and see how much more money is coming in your life. And then consciously choose how you want to invest that extra money.
Wow, that is such a great idea, man. And what's funny that you say that, because I've already today found 26 cents.
Amazing.
Right. But one of them I had to work for. I did the laundry, and I looked, and like the way my washing machine works, it's one of those top loader, like the newer ones. And it's got like a a ridge. And I said, what is that in there? And it was a penny. And I had to get a knife and dig it out.
Yes.
But I said, but now, and I just put it in my pocket, but no, I need to start a jar for those exact type of things. I love that. And you're right, because your brain starts to say, not that you're tricking your mind, but you're just making your mind aware, right? Like,
Yes.
look how much we're getting. Look at, the coins are piling up. Now we got bills coming in. Look out,
Yes.
and things like that do happen. I actually found it's so strange. Sunday, I was walking on the beach and there were, I live across the street from the beach. So every
Amazing.
morning, that's my morning. I walk on the beach every morning. And I found this whole array of stuff that someone had. It's like an alien abduction. There's like goggles, like swim goggles, and they all had been, they might have got washed out. But anyway, there was $1, a nice sandy dollar sitting there on the beach. I said, picking this baby up, put that in my pocket. And then I get the 26 cents. I'm like, I gotta start a jar for this.
Yes.
Awesome. Seeing that stuff piling up. That is good. Awesome. So are there some like favorite, besides your own, of course, which we absolutely have to check out, are there any sort of favorite books or favorite podcasts that you like that that sort of you think would help folks to sort of get themselves in the right mindset to accept the money that's sitting there waiting for them?
So mostly my own books. I will tell you the two books that probably made the biggest difference way back when for me, or opened my mind. Not even book, but just Robert Kiyosaki in general, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first time I had my mind open, like, oh, there's a choice to do this differently. There is sort of two ways of being in life.
Yeah.
And how do you step into this other one? So that was probably that was 20 years ago, when I read Robert Kiyosaki. I like Millionaire Mindset, like the T. Harv Eker book, because again, it's showing us choice. I can choose this, I can choose that. But for applications, I do my own stuff. Like I don't have a list, because there's things I listen to for fun, but for me, I found what works for me. And I think the biggest thing that people don't do, or the biggest thing that gets in people's way of being successful, is they don't know when to stop seeking the information and to start applying it. And so I will seek out if I want to know a specific thing, or I'm ready to take something next level, or I want to do this. But that usually comes by inspiration. I'll be wondering like, hey, I wonder how this works in the brain. And that video will show up, or somebody will, I'll just find it. But for me, I haven't read a book in a long time, because I just apply my stuff. I do the things that I've been doing for the last 7 years that have moved me forward. I just keep doing it on a deeper level. Yeah,
that's true, because you're right. It's interesting. I've listened to both sides of the equation, both people saying, oh, you have to read at least 30 minutes a day of some sort of, helpful stuff, or, what I want to say, self-help type thing, right? And then other people are like, I just read fiction and I just have fun, and that's just how my life goes. And I'm attracting good stuff because I'm a happy, healthy, person, and life is good, right?
Yeah.
Because there is that. Even I was reading it in one of your books that when you're seeking, it means you don't have it. So if you want to get yourself into a mindset that you have it, then you got to stop looking for it, right? Because you have it already. So yeah, very wise, very good. So anything that I wish I would have asked you, anything else that you'd like to share?
This is just coming, I don't know why, but this story keeps coming up. So somebody is going to love it.
Okay.
I had this client, and she's amazing. She's still in my orbit. And but when she was going through Manifest 10K, her husband was manifesting all these free pizzas. They'd mess up and say, get a free pizza. And she's like, it's not happening for me. It's not happening. And so we and we coached a lot on this. She's like, it's not happening. It's not happening. Well, it took a little while, but what she manifested was a new job and a raise. And you will love this. And then when she got that new job, she was in charge of ordering pizza, because they gave pizza to the office every Friday.
She just didn't know that that pizza delivery was like a key. This is like a sign that it's coming.
Yes. And so it's, it's step back and saying, I would say to her, I was like, do you want pizza or do you want money? Like, yes, this is happening for him and it's awesome, but it doesn't mean what's happening for you isn't happening behind the scenes. And then to see that, oh yeah, and it came with free pizza every Friday.
So there, husband.
Yeah.
Got you beat on that one.
Right.
But it's interesting. That is funny because, well, it's one of the things I hear. I like to listen to Abraham Hicks. I don't know if you ever listen to them, but one of the things is like that they sort of say is if you could just like say, oh, I want this, and it just appears. I mean, that's like hell. People think that would be heaven. That's like hell. There's no fun, right? It's the journey. It's like figuring out, it's the person you become. It's the people you meet. It's the really fun, interesting, crazy experiences that you have that you like, don't discount that, right? That funness. Like, yeah, okay, sure. I'd like to open my bedroom closet and say, oh shit, I forgot I had this $25,000 in here. Oh. I'm so glad I found it again. Like, no, it's actually a lot more fun to be like, oh, I'm going to make this money, or this money comes to me because, I got invited to a trip to Paris. And then somebody said, oh, yeah. I mean, I actually when I was taking that same course that, I was in that mastermind that I was telling you about, and I was trying to manifest. I don't know. That's probably what it was. I think it was $25,000 or $50,000. And I thought, like, how could this come to me? And I thought, well, I'm on the beach in the morning. Like, maybe I could find like a pirate's coin that washes up on the shore, Yeah, okay, that could happen. But you're right. You don't have to think how it's going to happen. You just think what life looks like when you already have it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Cassie, thank you so much for being with us today. It was really a blast talking to you. I can't believe our hour's already up. I think it's up. Oh yeah, it's up. 2 minutes to go.
You. Yeah, thank you for having me. It was amazing to be here and letting me share stories and tips. It was so much fun.
It was fun. Thank you. Awesome. And thank you, listener, for listening. I want to remind you again, this is a great time to click subscribe and to share with a friend. And I'm going to ask for a special favor because, we're working on getting the podcast into 50 countries by the end of the year. And so if you have a friend in Finland, Morocco, or Greece, send for the podcast to them. I will be so grateful. And I want to see those countries popping up on the list for next week. So Finland, Morocco, or Greece, for the podcast to them so we can get them to pop up on the country list. That would be amazing. And I also want to thank Dane Carter, Dayne Carter, because I just figured out how to go look at my comments on Apple Podcasts, and Dane left an awesome, really nice comment, something that like a family member would have left for me. So I just want to say how grateful I am to Dane for that. And we'll see you here next week.